What's good, y'all? It's your boy HB. Vital Route Drive Top. I apologize for the motherfucking hickey. I was getting something last night. You know what I'm saying? Get that cutty. But anyways, look, man. Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. This is a weird one, man. Obviously it's weird, but it's not an easy one to predict. We don't have anything to really. I'm not gonna say we don't have anything to go off with Tyron Woodley because obviously he's a ex UFC champ, but we don't have anything in terms of boxing. I mean, he looks great on the fucking mitts. He looks great, doing some of the drills. But I don't give a shit how good you look on the heavy bag or on the mitts or whatever the case may be. I want to see you spar. That's all I need. I just need like at least 1 minute of sparring to kind of get a gauge on what you can do in there. And this is what's tearing me up about this fight is I don't know what the fuck Tyron Woodley has to offer. And it's not even so much I don't know what he has to offer. It's more so I don't know how his punching technique is going to translate with the bigger gloves. I mean, it should be okay. I imagine he's still going to retain some power. But, I mean, look at McGregor. He came in, he made the transition. He took on Floyd Mayweather. And, he swore up and down that he was going to bounce Mayweather's head off the canvas. He actually landed a flush uppercut on Mayweather, and it didn't do shit. Mayweather literally walked through it and laughed, and it was pretty much breakfast for him. He ate that punch like it was nothing. And Conor's power and technique just didn't look the same when he stepped into the boxing ring with Mayweather. The thing about that, I think some guys, their technique does transfer over to bigger gloves, but sometimes it doesn't. McGregor was a perfect example of that. I don't know how Tyron Woodley's going to be. I just don't. And that's why I'm conflicted with choosing this. But I do believe if his punching technique, and it's not just technique, it's also muscle conditioning. It's a different type of muscle conditioning you're utilizing when you have those boxing gloves on as opposed to the 4-ounce, I think it's 4-ounce MMA gloves, right? First of all, you can't necessarily even make a closed fist in a boxing glove. The inside of your hands are padded significantly well compared to an MMA glove. And you see it all the time. I mean, my old gym in Florida, my trainer was a professional boxer, but he started off at an MMA gym, so he had a lot of connections. We had a lot of MMA fighters coming in and out of our boxing gym. We would train with them a lot. And you could see the punching techniques there is completely different. They're turning their punches over different. They're trying to land with a certain part of the hand because it's a different glove. So that's my concern for predicting this fight. I don't know how Tyron Woodley's going to punch with boxing gloves on. He looks good on the mitts. That's a good sign, right? I mean, it's not a telltale sign of who's going to win, but it's a good sign that his athleticism is somewhat transferring over. And he's a talented dude. I actually watched the True Giordi podcast. I don't know if y'all heard of that or not. It's pretty famous. I think he's a Englishman, but he was talking about this fight. He thinks Jake Paul's gonna win. Fair enough. I don't think that's a bad assessment. But one thing I did kind of disagree with: coffee and cigarettes, baby, gets the day going. But one thing I do agree with, or I don't agree with him on this fight, is that Jake Paul should just put pressure like he did with Ben Askren and Nate Robinson and try to go for the knockout. I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that's what True Giordi said, but he made it sound like Tyron Woodley can't handle that type of pressure. And I don't think that is the case. I actually think that would work in his favor. Tyron Woodley, he may not have the boxing technique and style, but I do think he has the IQ and intelligence and enough athleticism to get him through this fight and win and maybe even get a knockout. I tend to think he should fight on the back foot in this fight. I don't know how he's been training, but that's what I would do. I would fight off the back foot, and every time Jake Paul wants to come in, I would counter him with a big overhand right, sort of like what he did, I think, against I believe it was Josh Koscheck. I might be twisted on that one. And I like what he did against Wonderboy Thompson. He was very calculated. He was very patient. I know most of the fans thought it was boring, but how else do you beat fucking Wonderboy Thompson? And you also got to take into consideration your skills and abilities. And obviously he was getting to utilize wrestling to set up some of the stuff. But nonetheless, I like how he was fighting off the back foot, being patient, looking for his spots to pick and choose. I think that can work against Jake Paul. Drag him down, drag him out to deep waters. You know what I'm saying? Drag Jake Paul out to deep waters, because we still don't know. We know that he can think. We know Jake Paul can think in there. We know he can kind of string together stuff and set it up. But doing that for 1 or 2 rounds that's not giving me enough of a resume to tell me if you're really a calculated boxer with a high IQ. But we got to put things into perspective. As much, I think it's love or hate with Jake Paul, and it's weird because I think there's actually a lot of gray areas and there's a middle ground we should all be paying. We should be all kind of settling in with Jake Paul. Like, it's impressive where he's at. And maybe it's not so much impressive because, he's very wealthy. If you got the money and you got the desire, the heart, the effort, and on top of that, you're a big social media star, you have lots of pull, you have lots of connections, so you can get a lot of assistance and help from trainers and other fighters who are trying to get some clout as well. If you're willing to train hard for 3 years, you can get very fucking good at this sport, especially if you have the resources. That's the thing. My ass, I didn't start off in this sport with millions of dollars and, a big social media profile and shit like that. If I did, man, I would probably be contending for a title right now. But, I don't have those types of resources. And I don't want to take anything away from him because at the end of the day, he's still getting in the fucking ring. He's taking that risk. He's doing the sparring. He's putting in the time, the effort, the training. So he is doing phenomenal in that sense. It's phenomenal to see Jake Paul work his ass off in a sport that he doesn't need, when this is a sport typically most people come from very hard upbringings. So it's impressive in that front. And I respect him for that, because I don't think he's just doing it for the clout or the money. I think he's doing it because he genuinely is passionate about it. And I watched a video of him. It seemed like he was a little bit, going through a little bit of depression. And that seems to make sense. You conquer the world at a very early age. You're very successful, wealthy. You have all the women, money, power, and your own little hierarchy. And then all of a sudden, what's left? And boxing probably gave him some meaning, man. It probably gave him some direction. It probably, just made him feel alive in a sense. So, man, I got to respect that. I got to fucking respect that. And there's a lot of people that have all the money, the power, the fame already, and there's not too many of those people who will get in a ring and start fighting even if they're not purely boxers. There's not too many people that would get in a boxing ring and start fighting professional fighters. They wouldn't at that point in their life. The humiliation is that's one of the biggest things. You have these superstars, and their whole fucking persona can be ruined if they get knocked out. Nate Robinson's a fucking meme now. This dude was a phenomenal NBA basketball player, and, he was, a lot of people looked at him in high regards, and, we still respect Nate, but damn, he got fucking flatlined, and it's got to be embarrassing. So not too many people are willing to do that, and you got to give him credit for that. And who knows, he may get knocked the fuck out now, and he'll be the biggest fucking joke on the internet. So taking that risk, that's nothing to scoff at. And you got to respect that in a man. Now, I will say this. I do believe Jake Paul is possibly taking some Mexican fucking supplements. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Shooting the fucking needle in his ass or whatever the case may be. I would not be shocked if Jake Paul's on steroids. He got significantly bigger from the times I saw him when he was younger. To be fair, obviously he's going through a growth spurt, you know, from his teens to his 20s, but fuck, man, he got big. He got fucking big. And, you know, he's whatever, regardless of what y'all say, the motherfucker's got power. He's got power. I don't know if it's God-given, right? I don't know if it's God-given power, but, you know, I would not be shocked if he's taking steroids, and he does have power. And look, I don't give a fuck who he's knocking out, whether they be novices or professionals or some mediocre fighter. Dude, to have the ability to clean somebody's clock with one punch consistently, that's not... that he has something there. Now, how he develops it... if he continues on this career path, that's up to him. Because as you start getting better competition, that power will mean nothing against very good defensive fighters, very good fighters who understand distance, timing, and know how to take that away from you. But it's up to him to cultivate it. You know, it's like a nuclear weapon. A nuclear weapon is devastating. But if you don't have some delivery method or launch pad or aircraft carrier to drop it, that power is just... all that power is just sitting. It's doing nothing. It means absolutely nothing. So it's up to him. And look at... I mean, I can give you plenty of examples. Look at Kimbo Slice. Natural born big puncher. But he never really developed in a very sophisticated manner in terms of his skill and technique, so he could only do so much with it when he started to face top tier fighters, or not even, you know, just high level guys or guys who knew what they were doing to some extent. Sergey Kovalev became very dependent on his power. Now, Sergey Kovalev is significantly more skilled than Kimbo and is a fairly good boxer, but he relied a little too much on his power, never developed a good way to kind of set it up, never developed a consistent body attack because he didn't have to. You know, he's knocking motherfuckers out with his right cross easy. You know, but when you don't have to, when you become dependent on that and you don't develop it, it starts, you know, it's not going to mean nothing in a fight against a guy like Andre Ward, who knows how to take that away from you, or at least knows how to weather the storm and dilute your power, you know, take you to the deep end and fucking drown you like he did in that fight with him. It means nothing. So, but it is something. It is something. Jake Paul has power, and I don't care if you're knocking out a novice or an experienced guy. If you have that ability, you have it. Okay, you have it. How you develop it is all up to the individual, but he has it. Look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson in his prime when he was doing that peekaboo style from Customado, his skills, his footwork, his head movement, his defense was on point. He was unstoppable. And then you match that with the power, he was devastating. Then he gets on the back end of his career. He starts to lose his skills, his technique. His defense is not as good. His footwork's not as good. And his power's still there, but he ain't beating guys like fucking Lennox Lewis or Holyfield. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, he just becomes a brawler. As opposed to Mike Tyson in his prime was one of the most technical fighters, in my opinion, of all time. But it's hard to judge this fight with nothing, and rightfully so. Woodley's team making the right move. Don't show anything. Don't give Jake Paul any fucking indication of what you can do in that ring, because they will obviously... why would you want your opponent to have some sort of rebuttal or game plan for what he sees you do in sparring? You know, so yeah, it's a tough fight to call, man. I think if Woodley can retain the power in his punches in boxing gloves, I think he has a good chance of winning. But if he can't, and his punches kind of are watered down, and they're not really sharp, I think Jake Paul will fuck Tyron Woodley up. But here's the key to the fight I'll give the key to the fight for each of these guys. For Woodley, if I'm Woodley, I'm fighting off my back foot. I'm going to come out the first round and I'm going to move around. If I'm Woodley's trainer, I'm going to try, Woodley seems like a very athletic and gifted guy. I'm going to teach him how to utilize his jab. Okay, mix it up. I'm going to show Woodley, throw some feints, mix it up. Throw your jab downstairs, double up on it from time to time. The first round, I just want you to stick and move. See what this guy is going to do, see what he has to offer, work some pressure on him mentally, and don't let him touch you. Like, make it a point that, Jake Paul, you ain't going to hit me. You ain't going to touch. And I think if you go in there and you're Tyron Woodley, if I'm his trainer and I'm telling him, hey, go out there the first round, stick and move, use your athleticism, mix up your jab, throw some feints so he can't time you coming in, because Jake Paul does one thing really well. He times that right hand extraordinarily well. He'll even step back with it and throw it and boom. So if I'm Tyron Woodley or I'm his trainer, I'm like, all right, we're going to stick and move. We're going to shoot that jab up and down. Make sure you're throwing your feint so he can't predict when you're going to come in. So he can't time you as he's throwing that right hand. And don't let him hit you. Every time he wants to exchange, get out. L step out, pivot out. Just keep moving the first round. First round is just a feeler, and your jab is just being used to fend off Jake Paul. Use your athleticism. Yes, he's a big guy. He may be able to cut off the ring and it may seem overwhelming, but use your athleticism to get in and get out. Take him past the first round. Make him a little stressed mentally. Oh, shit, I can't hit fucking Tyron Woodley. I can't hit this motherfucker. Put some pressure on him mentally. Put the spotlight on him. Come out the second round. Same thing. I'll do the same thing. Frustrate him. Stick and move. Only the second round, I might tell Tyron Woodley, go for some body shots. Maybe just pot shot the cross, or do a little jab cross to the body. Steal some wind from him. Making sure that you take some of the wind out of Jake Paul's cardio. Because Jake Paul doesn't know what it's like to go deep into multiple rounds. And shit starts to change when you go deeper into fights. All that power you got may not be the same. All that thinking that you may be able to do when you're fresh may not be the same. All that technique that you have may not be the same when you get into that fourth, that fifth round. You know what I'm saying? So Jake Paul doesn't know what that's like. He doesn't know what that's like, and he hasn't experienced that consistently. He's used to getting in there and knocking motherfuckers out, with maybe the exception of his first amateur fight or first pro fight. So if I'm Tyron Woodley, I'm going in there, stick, move, utilize the jab, go up and down, steal some breaths with the jab to the body, maybe throwing across to the body. And, that third round, that's when I'm telling Tyron Woodley, all right, start uncorking some bombs on him. Every time he steps in, give me an overhand right. And that's the beauty for Tyron Woodley, being the undersized guy. That overhand right is going to be there. And honestly, Ben Askren, I believe, threw an overhand right, timed it perfectly. But once again, he didn't have the muscle conditioning for boxing. He's not a good striker to begin with, not even in terms of MMA. So that kind of fell on deaf ears. There was nothing really that punch, unfortunately, as perfectly timed as it was, and I believe that if that's a good boxer, Jake Paul gets knocked out. Ben Askren just didn't have the conditioning, and that's, once again, one of my fears with Tyron Woodley. The punches could be there for him, the opportunities can be there for him, but will his punching technique and muscle conditionings with boxing gloves transfer over? And that's the big question. We won't know till we see, because we don't have any fucking sort of footage on Tyron Woodley in terms of how he spars. But, you know, we kind of have to go off the sample we have from UFC and MMA, his MMA fights. He's a pretty athletic dude, and he looks pretty sharp on the mitts. So, man, I'm going to say he has a chance to do it. And it's pretty straightforward for Tyron Woodley. You know, be patient, come in there, feel it out, second round, activate that jab as much as you can, you know, and try to get some body shots in to slow him down. Make Jake Paul have to think. Make him have to think. Make him have to go through some sort of controversy in his head. Like, oh, shit, I'm not... Make him have to work mentally, because round after round after round goes by. He said he's going to knock Tyron Woodley out in 3. Okay, he doesn't knock him out in 3. He's still fighting, you know, and make him get frustrated. Make him think like, fuck, this guy, he's not there to hit. You know, he's outpointing me. He's picking me apart, you know, and let's see how Jake Paul reacts mentally from a situation like that. And then my thing is, that's when you set up the big bomb. That's when Tyron Woodley sets up that big overhand right, and that should be the finishing blow. That's the key to the fight for Tyron Woodley. Be patient, stick and move, you know, pot shot to the body, and then wait to land an overhand right. You know, set that big overhand right up and try to finish the fight, or at least outpoint, you know, maintain the standard for the rest of the rounds and win the fight on the scorecards. That's the best approach, in my opinion. Unless Tyron Woodley goes out there and he's just significantly better in boxing. If that's the case, then he's just going to have his way with him. The keys for Jake Paul, I think Jake Paul needs to be patient as well. I think he needs to put the pressure on Tyron. Both of them need to try and do that to each other, okay? Because both of them are somewhat inexperienced in a sense, in different contexts. You know, Tyron Woodley in a boxing ring and Jake Paul in terms of experience being in big-time fights where he has to improvise. So if I'm Jake Paul, the key to the fight for him is his jab. Using his size and his jab. But not to get overly eager. I think he should adopt what Ugas actually did to Pacquiao. I don't think he should go chasing Tyron Woodley, because I think he showed that he has exposed himself in that Ben Askren fight. When he gets a little too eager and anxious, he can get countered with a big shot. So if I'm Jake Paul, I want to put pressure, but I don't want to put relentless pressure. He's still a great athlete. Yes, he's significantly smaller, but he's a great athlete, and he's going to be, in my opinion, should be more dangerous than Ben Askren. So if I'm Jake Paul, I'm closing the distance, but I'm waiting. But I'm waiting actively with my jab. I'm shooting it out. I'm going to use it. He has a fairly decent jab. I'm mixing it up, and I make Tyron Woodley come to me. Okay, because I'm the bigger fighter. And that's when I utilize my overhand right. That's been money for him. But another thing I would do if I'm Jake Paul is try to work your hook in, man. Like, you got a great overhand right, but Tyron Woodley, you know, that overhand right might not be as easy to line up in this fight, because I believe Tyron Woodley is a little bit more calculated. And usually when you have a shorter fighter, the overhand right shouldn't be landing on a shorter fighter, right? But it did work against Nate Robinson, but Nate Robinson didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He was just walking into it. But I think Tyron Woodley will be aware of that. I don't think he's going to walk into it. So I think an important punch for Jake Paul in this fight is going to be his left hook. You know, everybody's going to be watching out for that overhand right. But instead of shooting that overhand right constantly every time Woodley comes in, because it seems like he does get a little addicted to that punch as fighters come in. He throws that overhand right over and over and over again. And I think Woodley's a little bit, hopefully he's smarter than that. So instead of throwing that overhand right, why not counter him with a check hook? To me, that should be a punch Jake Paul is looking for the whole fight. And then when you got him where you want him, okay, let's land that big overhand right you throw. But if I'm Jake Paul, I'm putting pressure, but it's not going to be relentless. I'm just going to stay in position at all times. I'm going to utilize my jab, keep Tyron at the end of my jab, and then as he gets desperate, counter him with a good hook. Or, if that overhand right is as good as he thinks it is, go for it. If it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And if it works, it works. So key for Tyron Woodley, stick and move, be patient, and wait for the big shot to come. Key for Jake Paul, keep your distance, apply pressure, but apply it patiently and wait to counter and hopefully develop your left hook. And he should be working on his left hook anyways if he has any intentions on pursuing a career in fucking boxing. You can't just rely on an overhand right all the fucking time. But this is my issue with everybody at Jake Paul. Like, I agree, you guys. Is he cocky, arrogant, and annoying? Yes, I understand that. But he should be if he's fighting. You kind of got to be. There's not really too many other options. You can be. Even the humble ones like GSP. Don't get it twisted. GSP, I know he has some, he's a very humble dude, and he even has self-doubts at times. I've heard him on podcasts talk about how he feels before fights. But that dude feels a certain type of way about himself. He's very confident deep down and probably borderline arrogant, but he just doesn't show it. Just like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's an arrogant motherfucker. He knows how to fucking... He doesn't have the personality, to talk shit, on mainstream, on the media outlets. But damn well behind scenes on the field, to himself, he's like, I'm a bad motherfucker. There's no way you're that good or you have success in sports like football or boxing or MMA and you don't have some sort of arrogance to you. Some guys just know how to hide it better than others, or some guys just understand marketing. But what y'all have to understand, it's actually pretty impressive what he's doing. Granted, he has all the resources in the world, but once again, this ain't fucking tennis. This ain't fucking soccer. This ain't basketball. This motherfucker is fighting. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to sacrifice his health and well-being. He can easily go back to his mansion and go play with a bunch of honeys. He doesn't have to do shit. But he's doing it. He's in the hurt business. And I respect that. Unless I figure out all these fucking fights are goddamn fixed or something. And I like what he's doing mentally to Woodley. He's really, really testing him. I mean, that fucking bet he put on, he wanted to make like, hey, put up your purse. Kind of disingenuous because it's easy for Jake Paul to put up his purse. Once again, he's filthy fucking rich. So, I mean, if he loses out on the money, he loses out on the money. But, for Tyron Woodley, this is big for him. This is a big payday for him. So, he can't afford to, and I understand why he didn't. You never know in this business. Even if he is better than Jake Paul, all it takes is one little slip up, man. But brilliant move on his part because he understood like, hey, I'm fucking rich. I can put my money up. But it also kind of it can also fuck with Woodley in the sense that it's like, I'm so confident I'm going to beat you. I'm willing to bet my fucking money that I make in this fight. That's how that can possibly fuck with Woodley and make him think like, does this motherfucker know something I don't? Is he really that good? Like, is he seeing something that I don't? And he may be. Jake Paul may see a huge weakness in fucking Tyron Woodley, and him and his team decided this is the guy to take on, and this is a good chance that I'm gonna win this fight. But it's also, I think, a brilliant move in a sense to fuck with Woodley and his confidence because Woodley didn't seem too eager to bet his purse on it. And then I think they made a wager on a tattoo or something. He didn't seem too eager to jump at that. But nice little fucking move on Jake Paul's part. And even Jake Paul has to get a fucking tattoo of Tyron Woodley. He'd probably like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would probably like it, and he would turn it into some self-promotional social media thing to where people are laughing, and he's making more money. So it's fucking brilliant the way he's playing this. Very good businessman. But, you know, Jake Paul's doing phenomenal. He's been doing this, what, 3-4 years, training his ass off. He's where he's supposed to be, if not ahead. How many professional boxers take on an ex-UFC fighter, their second fight? And I know what people are saying. Well, yeah, he's a professional UFC fighter, but he's not a boxer. He's not a pure boxer. And I agree with that. But here's the way you got to look at it. Most professional boxers, a lot of the successful ones you see today, their first and second fights, not all of them are taking on tough opponents, right? And most of those guys are fucking Mexicans crossing the border. They're just trying to make a quick buck. They're thrown a pair of fucking gloves, and they're told them to walk in the ring and, you know, get their short amount of glory and you know, be happy that they get to face a future contender. You know, they literally set up those early batches for the most part, especially with the guys who have a big promising future. They literally set them up with tomato cans. You know, they set them up in matches that they're not going to lose, with guys who aren't going to pose them any sort of fucking threat or danger. Sometimes. Not like Vasily Lomachenko, right? Lomachenko came in guns blazing when he started his professional career. But, you know, a lot of guys like Mayweather, you know, or Gervonta Davis, they're giving fucking handouts, you know. And don't get me wrong, I think Gervonta Davis would fuck Tyron Woodley up if he was his second fight in his professional boxing career. But for Jake Paul, considering he hasn't been doing this since he was 5 fucking years old or some shit like that, that's actually pretty impressive. And here's the thing. Like I said, I trained at a gym in Florida. We had lots of MMA fighters come in, and they're great work, man. It's great work when you have MMA fighters who come in and they want to work on their boxing. And usually that's what you do. When you're starting off, you put a pure boxer. If you're a pure boxer, it's great. If you got MMA guys coming in and out, it's a great way to get some good sparring in. It's a great way to get some. That's usually what you do when you initially start off your career. Bring in MMA fighters to spar or to compete against in an amateur event. Bring in an MMA fighter. It's great work to develop. So I think Jake Paul's where he needs to be. And he's not just bringing in any MMA fighter. He's bringing in an ex-UFC welterweight champion. So that's pretty fucking impressive. And people need to get on board with that and the fact that he's doing this. And I think he's doing it for more than just entertainment and money. Maybe I'm wrong. And I do think that's his intent. Now, that can change when he comes across the wrong motherfucker, when he finally faces a guy who's like, this is my fucking livelihood, and I'm not giving it up for your little Disney Channel ass. Jake Paul might change his mind eventually, that this is what he really wants to do. But, you know, at the same time, I'm not in the fucking, as much as I'm impressed with what Jake Paul has been doing, especially more so than his brother. Let's not get it twisted. He needs to stop with this Canelo shit. The guy is doing good for where he's at, but talking about beating Canelo one day and shit like that, I mean, anything is possible, right? And like, if that's something that will manifest eventually, it would either have to be out of a pure money grab, or Jake Paul would literally have to climb his way up the ranks for 5 years or something like that, or at least till he gets very good and he's facing legitimate boxers and beating them in his own weight class. That should be noted. Then maybe I'll entertain the idea of something like that. But I don't see that. Other than a complete fucking exhibition match for a money grab, I don't see Jake Paul ever beating fucking Canelo Alvarez. He's not that good. Can he get that good? Maybe. maybe, but that would take years and years and years. And as much as he says he wants to do this for a long time, once that 2-year mark passes by, that 4-year mark, and when you start getting in the rings with guys who are literally fighting for their life, that mentality may change. Right now, he's on a high, right? So he's not really making an honest, well, you can't really be honest if you're Jake Paul, and that's kind of how he's been successful. If the guy was honest, if the guy was too realistic, he wouldn't be doing this stuff. I mean, like Logan Paul said when he was fighting Mayweather, like, this isn't supposed to happen. I'm not supposed to be here. This is crazy. I'm facing one of the greatest boxers of all time. I only have and I've lost my first 2 fights or first fight or whatever. So, I can't shoot the man down for his ambitions because, they are doing some shit that nobody thought would happen. They're creating this new kind of standard in boxing. So I'm not going to say it's not possible, it can't happen, but I definitely don't believe Jake Paul is a high caliber professional boxer yet. It could happen, but right now, no, I'm not that supportive of Jake Paul to say, oh, well, he's the next up and coming fucking light heavyweight or cruiserweight. No. And that's another thing. Like, he's not even facing guys in his own weight class yet, and he hasn't faced a boxer yet. I think a good matchup for him will be possibly Tommy Fury in the next fight. I haven't watched too much of Tommy Fury, but from what I hear from people, they both sound roughly around the same level. And look, if you're really talking about doing this boxing shit, maybe that's a good fight. Tommy Fury doesn't have an extensive amateur background. He's going to be a longer, rangier opponent. He is a pure boxer. He's got his own social media crap going on with Love Island and all this shit. That might be the next, if he can get past Woodley, that might be a nice fight. But it's tough for Jake Paul at this point because he's really jumped. He went from 0 to 100. At this point, you only expect him to face nothing but big names. But I'm not rushing him to face a pure boxer yet. He should continue to fucking fight MMA fighters, especially if he keeps winning, and then eventually he can graduate to a pure boxer. The problem is his fights are all about notoriety. So how would Jake Paul, what boxer can he find at his level that's going to pull in the same amount of attention as against, say, like a guy like Tyron Woodley? If he beats Tyron Woodley, where does he go from there? If I'm him, I'm trying to line up a lot of UFC fighters to beat up. And then eventually, when I get good enough, maybe I take some fairly known boxer. Okay? Because, that's another thing. It's like people want to say, oh, he needs to take on a real boxer. Well, he's just starting out too. He's kind of creating this new fucking standard. You can't go to some no-name boxer after this. And you certainly don't want to take on a big-name boxer because you'll get fucked up. So you got to understand why you got the money train rolling. Why would you mess it up? If you can continue to knock out UFC fighters for cash grabs, why not? And then when you're absolutely ready, okay, take on Tommy Fury, right? Good looking dude, associated with he's from the Fury family. He's a boxer. He has somewhat around the same level of skills and doesn't have a big amateur background. That would be the next move. But that's the thing. He's going so higher and higher in terms of his standards. You can't go forward and then look back if you're Jake Paul. So I don't hate him for taking these UFC fights. It's still impressive. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and call Jake Paul the next coming of the light heavyweight division or cruiserweight division or whatever division he would be fighting in. So he still hasn't tasted the hurt game yet. He still hasn't experienced what it is to really do this business. And right now he's on the high. He's in the honeymoon phase because he's kind of doing this thing differently and he's having lots of success. But man, once you win those fucking fights where you're literally, it's taking years off your life, that might change the way you start conducting yourself or how you feel about competing in this sport for the long haul. But other than a freak matchup, exhibition matchup, yeah, could he face Canelo just to fucking for a cash grab? Yeah, but ain't no way in hell he's beating Canelo. That would take years and years and years and years and years of experience, and not just against UFC fighters. He would have to beat very talented boxers just to even entertain beating Canelo Alvarez, just to entertain it. And but this is my assessment of the whole thing. Who do I think is going to win the fight? It's a 50-50, man. It's a 50. I don't want to guide any of y'all wrong. Like I said, I don't have enough information on Woodley and how he fights with boxing gloves. So it would be unfair for me to say convincingly, oh, this guy's going to win or that guy's going to win. All I know is that it's probably going to be a 50-50 fight. I'm going to lean towards Jake Paul just because he's been doing this. He's been committed to it for a while. He's been training. He has all the resources. He can get all the help he wants. Tyron Woodley just took this fight. He's just learned. I mean, he's always been boxing to a certain extent, but this is going to be his first legit boxing match where he's purely training for it. And I'm just going to give Jake Paul the advantage because he's been doing it consistently for the last 3 years. He's going to be the bigger fighter, and he's got some pretty damn good power. But if he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to stick behind that jab and be patient and, time Woodley as he comes in with the overhand right or left hook. And for Woodley, he's going to need to be patient as well. He's going to need to utilize his jab, his footwork, L-step out to the right, pivot out to the left, mix it out, get some pot shots to the body, start to stress out Jake Paul, make him panic, take him into deep waters, get him tired, mentally and physically. And then when the right opportunity comes to strike, set up that overhand right that he knocked a lot of fighters out in the UFC with. So that's my take on it, you guys. I may do a quick little summary, a little prediction before the fight, but I would give the edge to Jake Paul simply because he's been doing this consistently for 3 years and he has all the resources to do it effectively. Until another one, subscribe, like the video, comment down below. I remember you guys. Maybe one day I'll be facing Jake Paul. Maybe I'll fuck his ass up for you. But as of now, I'm still building. I'm doing it the traditional way. I'm doing it the hard way. I will be light heavyweight champ of the world one day. So subscribe below. I just started this channel, man. I'm trying to build a following and build a base and just share what I love, man. This is my passion. I love talking sports. I love talking boxing. I love talking MMA. And, I might not be right about all my predictions, but it's still fun, man. It's like high school when we used to go out to lunch and fucking kick it with the boys and we would just talk sports all day and talk shit. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And when you were right, you had fun and you would let people know. And when you were wrong, you had to eat crow. But it was still funny and we all busted each other's balls. So this is what this channel's here for, man. Just to share, to have fun, talk shit, bask in the glory of our proper predictions and eat shit when we make the wrong ones and bust each other's balls. So get at me. This is HB with Final Round and Drive Time. Well, not Drive Time because I ain't driving shit right now, but Final Round. Peace and love, man.